Take a look around, guys, at fellas in our age group, say in that 35, 40, 45, or 50, even 55. Some of these gentlemen are crushing it in life, while others, not so much, right? They're stuck spinning their wheels and they're going nowhere fast. Maybe that second guy is even you. The difference, guys, is not luck or talent. What it is ego management. The guys that are still playing the same games that they were in their 20s are getting left behind. So ask yourself this: are you still playing checkers while those men ahead of you are playing chess? Well, if so, today we're going to fix this, guys. You're going to learn how to harness and direct your ego so that the next chapters of your life are about growth and possibility, and not about bitterness and stagnation. Author Ryan Holiday touches upon this in his book, Ego is the Enemy. And in this book, he speaks to how unchecked and sort of unbridled ego is the downfall of so many men. And guys, there are no shortage of examples out there. Look, we all have egos. I have an ego, probably a too big a one, but there's times, and as I've grown up and sort of got some wisdom, I've learned to check that same ego. And here's an uncomfortable truth, guys. Here's a truth that you need to hear. The very ego, that ego that helped you sort of climb the ladder, and it doesn't matter the endeavor, is now sabotaging you into sort of what I narrowed down is 4 key categories that men sort of compete in. The first is work. The second is women and relationships. Then we have sport. And then lastly, social status. And today, in this video, guys, I'm going to show you exactly how to fix what's broken in each area. All right, guys, let's start with the first one. Work and or career. Your job. This is where many guys our age get stuck. I know I did, for sure. Guys in that sort of middle age. They stagnate, and what happens is many guys are going to sort of check out. You've experienced some success, most likely. So your ego tells you that you sort of have it figured out. You're not as willing to listen to input. So what do? You stop learning, you stop adapting, and you wonder why the younger cats are passing you by. The second that we're going to hit upon is dating and relationships. So whether you're married or single, guys, it doesn't really matter. Your ego is making decisions for you. And many of you probably don't even realize it. If you're married, you're probably not truly listening to your partner because, you think you have things figured out. You think you have her figured out. That's your ego talking. And if you're dating, single and dating, you're either overcompensating or more likely underselling. Both are ego-driven disasters. All right, third, guys, we're going to talk about sort of sport and physical competition. This is oftentimes where the midlife ego really, I'll say here, shows its ass, okay? So you're still trying to perform like you're 20-25. You're getting injured more often, and you're refusing to adapt your approach to your actual age, and you're now probably diminished capabilities. I know I did. Trust me, plenty of times. And, these abilities, guys, they're an inevitable decline. You can stay in shape, you can stay in the best of shape. But so far, to date, guys, Father Time has never lost, not once. All right, and lastly, guys, we are going to talk about social status. This one's sort of sneaky, or let's call it abstract. You're comparing yourself to your peers, to these online gurus, and these, snake oil charlatans and, schmucks on social media. You're measuring your success by their yardsticks. You're making financial and career decisions based on what looks good, again, likely an illusion in many cases, rather than what actually works for your specific situation. So, guys, the pattern is generally the same across all 4 areas. Ego-driven rigidity that's costing you results, right? And you're unwilling to adapt is absolutely killing your growth. So a common problem I see, guys, and it's one I see repeatedly all the time, is that most guys, when faced with this situation, they sort of double down on what used to work, relying on past experience, which can be good, but in this case, sort of your ego getting in the way. So these guys are going to work sort of harder, not smarter. I know you've heard some iteration of that. But these guys get more stubborn. They don't get more strategic. Again, it's in a refusal to adapt based on ego. And they're chasing that same sort of validation they chased when they're, say, 23, 25, not realizing that the game has changed for them completely. So, in your 20s and 30s, guys, let's say here, 20 to even, we'll say up till 35, competition was more about proving yourself, sort of marking your territory or pissing on the tree, if you will. Okay? It was accumulating skills, money and status, chasing that clout, I suppose. Ego-driven ambition was perfect for this. It worked, right? For a while, until it didn't anymore. Now, as you get into your 40s and into your 50s, competition needs to be more about leveraging yourself, applying the wisdom that you've accrued and, come by over the years, building systems and creating sort of a legacy. So ego-driven defense here starts to become toxic. It works against you. So guys, people will literally burn shit to protect their ego investments. They're deeply held, often incorrect beliefs. When you challenge somebody's ego, guys, especially if it's a deep-seated belief, it is going to be hard to get them to change. They're going to have to come to this realization themselves. So, what is the pivot point, guys? Well, the pivot point is this. It's when you realize that being right is less value than being effective. There's an old saying, guys, and it's a very wise saying. Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Okay? That looking smart is far less than creating results. Again, as I sort of bang the drum or stand on the mountain and yell, guys, results are the only thing that matters in this life. Across any endeavor, it's results. Again, and that winning arguments, especially with people on the internet or people that don't even matter to you, is meaningless compared to building relationships. So this pivot is where most men are going to fail. They're going to keep playing playing this proving game, long after it stops serving them in any meaningful capacity. And then wondering why they feel empty despite, some of their successes that they may have, come upon in spite of it. All right, guys, let's move on, as I talked about earlier in the video, into the ego reset protocol. All right, so the first thing we talked about, guys, was your sort of work, your career. So here's one for you guys. Instead of being the expert, become more of a connector, okay? Bringing people together, the facilitator, if you will. Find one or more person younger than you in your office that's sort of crushing it, an up-and-comer, and they're doing something that you don't quite understand. Humble yourself and ask them to teach you something. And it's not in this sort of weak attempt to show that you're open-minded, because they actually know shit that you don't. And you put your ego aside and admit that. So here's an example here, guys. Say you're in finance and the 26-year-old, hotshot marketing genius, take this cat to lunch. Talk to this guy and pick his brain about social media strategy. Guys, I promise, I'm 52 this year. When I finished my career, maybe a year or so ago, I was always going to the young guys for sort of a social media approach. They're far more adept than an old fossil like me and you if you're older. Your ego is going to fight this, guys. You want to be the wise sage up on the mountain. It's okay. Ask for help. All right, guys, moving on here to sort of dating and or relationships. So this applies, guys, whether you're married or you're single. And you guys are going to give me hell for this. Implement one sort of vulnerability rule. Let's call it openness, guys. I know vulnerability, you guys, some of your red pill guys are going to get all up and get your shit all up, your panties in a bunch here. But once a week, guys, share, something that you're sort of struggling with or, it's challenging to you, with your partner. I hate that word, but your wife, spouse, girlfriend, whatever you want to say. And this isn't any attempt to elicit sympathy. Please understand that. But it's practice to be seen that you don't know everything. So as an example here, guys, maybe like we talked about in the first part about, say I'm feeling, a bit confused or a bit adrift in my career direction lately. Something, I'd like to bounce off of you. That's not necessarily a vulnerability, guys, but it's showing that you don't know everything and you value her input. Or say you're married. Hey, I don't really know the best way to handle this situation with our kids, and can use your perspective a little bit more before I make my decision. Excuse me, guys. Watch how this sort of changes the dynamic. Because now you're asking for input. It's not all about you. You're not, the king in the castle. Guys, again, trust me, this stuff works. All right, moving on. Let's get away from that vulnerability stuff. Sports and physical competition, guys. Okay. We need to shift from performance to process. You need to become sort of detached from the end goal and become outcome independent, guys. As you get older, you're going to have less and less wins. Trust me. But pick one physical activity where you deliberately focus on improvement instead of quote unquote winning. So for example, guys, say you play tennis, and please tell me you don't play paddle. But anyway, spend a month working on, whatever skill, your backhand, your serve, whatever it is, with no expectation of winning matches, just getting better at that skill. And then track your improvement over time. Not necessarily the wins and losses. Again, this retrains your ego to value growth over sort of dominating. Guys, I'll sidebar here. I've always been an athlete. And as you get older, those skills fade. And you have to sort of transition your mind. There became a day where I couldn't play ice hockey or baseball anymore. I just couldn't compete. I wasn't good enough anymore, and it wasn't getting any younger. So I picked up other endeavors. And I started to play a lot of basketball, which I was halfway decent at. Same thing here, guys. As I got into my mid-late 30s, my brain knew what to do, but your body just isn't fast enough, quick enough, adept anymore. So you have to adjust your strategy. That's what I'm talking about here. And guys, it doesn't matter. Whatever sport, whatever endeavor, you have to adapt and work more on your skills and your mindset, sometimes over the physical prowess of the sport. All right, guys. And lastly, on to social status. So practice sort of what I call strategic invisibility, removing yourself from the fray, the situation. So once a month, and it doesn't have to be my rule once a month, it could be whatever. Skip something where you'd normally show up and be seen. Maybe that's going out with the guys, happy hour, golf, whatever it is. But instead, use this time to build something for your future self, right? We're not dead yet, guys. We're only mid-age and not your current image. So for example, I was just talking about maybe skip that golf tournament, weekly golf outing with your guys, and then instead work on a side hustle. That could be anything, guys. Maybe you're building a business, starting a business off the ground, starting a YouTube channel, writing a book, whatever that might be. Take something that you normally do and do something that adds to your growth. Trust me, guys, your friends, your true friends will get over this. You said your ego is going to have that sort of FOMO, that fear of missing out. You'll get over it. And the more times you skip these events and the more productive and the more, results you see, you're going to be more okay with it. Okay. And that's the point. All right, guys. So here's where we sort of land on this. Your ego isn't necessarily the problem. It's that you're using sort of outdated competitive strategies in a game that has changed, from 25 to say 45 or 50. Things have changed, okay? The question isn't whether you'll face ego challenges in midlife. Of course you will. We always will. The question is whether you're going to let them derail you or you're going to use them for fuel for the next chapters of your life. So guys, if this video sort of maybe hit a nerve with you, that's probably good. That's your ego talking. And you recognize it. That's a big step. And that's exactly what we're looking for here, right? That discomfort is a signal that you need to change, that you need to act, that you need to make a shift. So, guys, I always leave you with a challenge, and I'm going to do so in this video. So pick one area, one arena, if you will, where your ego is costing you, and, after some thought, you realize that. and where it's costing you most, okay? And implement, the specific protocol that I outlined above, outlined, whatever you want to say. It doesn't have to be exact, but follow the sort of outline. And just take one, guys, and do it for 30 days. Do it for 2 weeks, 60 days. Give it a chance to work. Don't try it for a day and quit, okay? And then do me a favor, guys. After this, or, soon, drop me a comment below with which arena you're starting with and what specific protocol you're using. I want to hear from you guys who are actually doing this work and not just sort of consuming the content and going on to the next video. And do me a favor, guys. Appreciate every one of you. The channel is growing. It's slowly, but it's getting there. The real ones, you guys know who you are. And if you haven't already, guys, I'd appreciate that you hit the subscribe and the notification bell. So next week, I'm going to talk a little bit more on how to handle specific ego challenges, that come with money and financial decisions, especially as we get into our 40s and 50s. You won't want to miss that one, guys. And remember, take this, guys. Strong man competes with who he was yesterday. A weaker man competes with everyone else today. I did type that out myself. I was going to ask ChatGPT, but put that one together myself. Do me a favor, guys. Choose which man you want to be for the second half of your life. Guys, again, always appreciate all of you, all the support, all the likes, the comments, the good and the bad. I read them all best I can. And guys, as always, live deliberately.